Welcome in, Lisa. I'm happy to have you on the podcast.
I am so happy to be here to share some words with you.
Oh, praise God. So this month we are paying homage or paying attention to bringing
Mhm.
attention to pediatric cancer awareness. And I know that you have personal experience with this disease. And so would you please share with our audience a little bit of your story and your experience with pediatric cancer?
Absolutely. Um, Real briefly, my grandson Liam was diagnosed in 2018 with leukemia, ALL. Liam fought the cancer with chemo and radiation treatments. In 2021, we thought he was done with his chemo. We celebrated,
Mm.
and 5 weeks later, he relapsed. So, in the interim of that, they was back to the hospital and getting ready for a bone marrow transplant. He had his bone marrow transplant in December of 2021, and he is now, praise God, cancer free.
All right. Praise God indeed.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Praise God. So 3 years with cancer.
Well, actually, his fight was almost 5 years in all. He
Oh,
was
okay.
diagnosed just before he was four, and had the bone marrow transplant when he was 7.5. And um, you had to wait a year to make sure that everything had, his body had grafted the host, which it did. And so it was just like a culmination of about 5 years. And
Wow.
even to this day, we're still seeing repercussions from the chemo. Um, he has vision issues. He will
Mm,
see a neurologist in a couple months for that. Has glasses. At school, he has OT, PT. His gait isn't quite correct in his walking. And also his academics are less than what he should be for his age.
so obviously this is something that it varies from person to person.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
Liam at a young age is having this experience. We had someone on the podcast recently who's also a pediatric cancer survivor. And in fact,
Mhm.
you may or may not remember,
Miss Haley.
yeah, well,
Yes.
Hannah and
Hannah. Okay.
Haley,
Haley.
I
Yes.
had Hannibal on recently, and she has been able to continue on her path, I guess a
Hmm.
little different from Liam. So
Right.
how do you, or what advice do you give to caregivers who are in the situation? How have you guys handled watching Liam go through this now, the after effects?
Okay. Well, um, as a caregiver, because I did end up moving from Florida to Massachusetts during the second phase of his
Mm,
cancer journey. And actually, I became the mom of
mm,
the family. My oldest grandson was 16. He needed guidance. Dad worked nights. So basically, I did become the mom.
mm.
Um, and thereafter, I stayed for 2 years, um, helping them along with his journey, seeing that he was really progressing after his final bone marrow and through this past spring. I decided for me it was time to have a new journey for myself to
Mm,
move on.
yeah.
But with him, as far as his medical, we just kind of go with the flow. We um, worked with him with his academics. And again, like the neurologist said, that he may never get back some of the things that he should have.
Mm,
And that all goes with the treatment. We understand that, but we're still working. School is working with him. Mom is working with him. He's actually has joined it's street hockey. It's like ball hockey. He
Oh,
just
uh-huh.
joined a team, so he hasn't
Wow.
played yet. So, with his brother being a hockey player and being able to kind of step in and give him um, some insight as to how to play the game. We'll see how he does.
And that's right.
So,
Now, physically, is that going to be a challenge or?
well, it may be because
Mm,
he still can't keep up. He still doesn't have the stamina. He still takes the elevator at school just because his actual class is on the third floor.
mm,
So for him to go up all the stairs, he's still doing the one step at a time.
mhm.
Um, but we feel that just getting him out with his peers and trying to play the sport, and I'm sure people will give him grace.
Well,
Um,
we hope so for sure.
because a lot of people know his story, and I just find that kids are so much more accepting today of
That,
students with
yeah,
disabilities. So yeah, I'm hoping that it all goes great.
yeah, that's a fact. I like what you said right there. You said students are so much more accepting, and even as a high school teacher,
Hmm.
I find students understanding that we're not all the same. And I'm sure
Absolutely.
that there's still some of the stereotypical things that happen, but by and large, it it is a bit better
Hmm.
uh, today. And
Well,
so, do you know of some ways that people can help, whether it's helping Liam or just helping in this fight against
hmm.
pediatric cancer? Like, what were some of the things that would have helped you in this process?
Actually, we did have a lot of help. There were organizations in Massachusetts through Boston Children's, through UMass Medical, where um, materialistic help,
Mm.
um, gift cards. At one point in time, the family was offered a house on the Cape to
Oh,
actually experience the beach with Liam.
mm.
Um, those were, some of the things. The material things were awesome, but I'm going to tell you, with the prayers that
Mm.
we asked for, that people were. I had people just through social media in Australia, in
Wow.
Europe, in Canada, all posting or just being together in prayer for him, and
Yeah.
and to this day they're still praying for him. So it was like it just grew exponentially through people who I will put his name on the prayer list at my church. We'll put his name on the prayer list at this church, and and through the grace of God and his medical help, it took both of those
Mm.
definitely for him to get through it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I mean, that is like the biggest thing that we understand, and just so many people behind him.
Yeah. That's, I loved that you were, because I noticed you were saying material. I noticed
Hmm.
that. And I was thinking, she's really focusing on ensuring we understand there was some material help. And then when you brought in, but the prayers.
Hmm. It was
Uh,
amazing. It's amazing to know that people can just come through like that, and like I said, the way that it just grew exponentially from mostly from social media,
mm,
because you have to understand that it was COVID time also. So
right.
we were not just quarantined for him through his procedures, but we were also quarantined due to COVID.
That's right. I think I forgot about that.
So I mean, it was like a double whammy for him.
Yeah.
Um, we didn't socially, even when I moved north,
Hmm.
socially, I did not really go out just for his sake.
Right.
Um, after he had the bone marrow transplant, and he was in the hospital for 3 months for that, and then came home on 100 days quarantine.
Oh, snap.
So luckily, the house had a basement that was refinished. It was just like an apartment. But the only way that I could go down and see him was I took a shower
Hmm.
with dial soap, wore a mask, and I could only touch him on the head. So
Wow.
just imagine
For a
having
hundred
him,
days.
yes, and just imagine just having him that close, but you couldn't touch him,
Mm,
So that was
wow.
tough.
Huh. So, if possible, because
Yes.
I didn't know about this, but if possible, you said that was tough. Can you share a little bit of maybe some moments that you had? Uh, Maybe a tough moment? I don't know
Yeah.
if I know what I'm asking, but
Well, besides that, it was like going actually after he had the transplant, and I remember this vividly, going to the hospital. Only one person can go in
mm,
with mom or dad. Um, and he was just so sick, we couldn't even have a conversation with him.
mm,
That was really tough. Um, but knowing that he was on the other side. There was like the before, after the transplant, there
mhm,
were 2 weeks where he was such a sick little kid.
mm,
Um, but we saw signs of him going in the other direction. He was finally able to swallow a noodle from mac and cheese.
mm,
So you're thinking about all that with the feeding tubes, all that. Now you're getting home, and yes, he's doing great, but nobody could visit.
mm,
Um, it was the precautions that we had to take,
yeah,
even with his brother, like playing hockey. You're going into an arena with people. Um, we just always had to make sure that we had precautions and
yeah,
to make sure that he had the best, of whatever that we could give him around.
yeah.
So, yeah. But
That is,
in on the other side of that, yes, it's tough, but once you see those little small things happening in
mm,
him, all of a sudden his hair started coming back.
mm,
All of a sudden he wanted to play, throw a ball and try
mm,
to catch a ball. It was like, he's starting to quote unquote get into some of the normalcy of things that
mm.
an 8-year old child should be doing. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think we forget when we're talking about pediatric cancer, childhood cancer. Uh, my friend Hannah says it well. While everybody else is playing ball or playing
Mhm.
hockey or going swimming or whatever, she's going to appointments for
Right.
chemo, or Liam's in the hospital, and
Right.
even when he's out of the hospital and everything is well, 100 days
Hmm.
in quarantine. And I
Right.
think that's what we want people to join the fight in, so that
Hmm.
grandparents don't have to experience this, kids don't have to experience this, or we just add to the support system, because it may be one of those things where the Lord says, I'm not taking cancer away,
Right.
but I will give you a way to endure it well.
Right. I'll give you
With
the tools to I'm sorry, to get
yeah,
through this. Um, you know, I often think about that. Um, I'm sorry.
yeah,
I just often think about how, like why, the whys of it, and just pray
yeah,
that why. But we know why.
mm,
We take what we can get and then just go on.
Well, I definitely appreciate you being willing to share. I'm so thankful that Liam is on the other side of this
Oh,
and that he's
yeah.
doing his thing with
Yeah,
even with the ups and downs.
absolutely. Yes.
Uh,
Yeah. And we're still having them. But again, we're moving on.
yeah, yeah. And so I look forward to the day, maybe the Lord will allow 1 September I can have little Liam on the show
That would
and
be
he can
awesome.
share
Well,
his
yeah.
story.
Well, you know that he was dubbed the mayor at the
Oh,
hospital.
oh, is that-
Yes, Liam was dubbed the mayor because Liam is very social,
Hmm,
um, but pretty much grew up at the hospital. I mean, I just remember going to visit him when he was more mobile at the
hmm,
hospital, him with his IV pole,
hmm.
pulling along his chemo, saying, "Let me show you the place. This is the family room," and took me throughout the hospital, showing me pretty much where he lived. And that
Yeah,
was his home.
how about
But
that?
yeah,
And
yeah,
good spirits.
absolutely. After he
Yeah.
had the transplant, and we didn't know if he was going to graft from the host, but he said, if I don't, I'll do it again and I'll fight it.
Hmm,
Yes, yeah, yeah.
how
And
about that?
let me just if I can just interject and talk to you one more time. We found out who the host was, the donor was.
Hmm,
Okay. She is a mom of a same 8-year-old girl, same age as Liam, active military, pediatric NICU doctor at Walter Reed Hospital.
wow.
Amazing.
Wow.
Amazing. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is
So,
something.
yeah.
So how can people or let me I don't know how to what is the process of becoming a bone marrow donor?
Okay. So all you would have to do, and when we talked to the donor for her doctorate, she spearheaded an event, which was Be the Match. And
Mm,
actually, that's how she was on the donor list.
wow.
Yes, yeah, amazing. Just the story and the way that it all came together. So basically, I believe all you have to do is contact Red Cross service, or whatever, and it's called Be the Match. You can go
Mm,
online, find Be the Match, and it's just a simple blood, giving blood.
mm. And then they
So,
take that and put you in
yep.
a system.
Yes, yes. And the funny thing, not even funny, but unusual thing was his brother, who was a full 100% brother, was not a good enough match for Liam. So
Uh,
they had to go out into the donor list to find the match.
yeah, and I've heard of that. It's fascinating, but
Hmm.
I've heard of that. That's not as uncommon as we think it would be.
Right. But we
But
we thought, oh, he's good,
yeah,
his brother will be the match and off we'll go. And that wasn't the case.
yeah, yeah. That's fascinating.
Hmm.
Well, I want to
But
thank you. Oh, I'm sorry.
that's okay. I just also wanted to say that I am spearheading an event at my school,
Hmm.
at my new school here in Texas, on my birthday, which is September 22nd. I'm reaching that pretty funky age of Medicare.
Oh,
Um, but we are all going to wear the gold for pediatric cancer and the ribbons.
that's all right. So
So
your
yes, I
school
just
is
want
going gold.
we are, and just bringing awareness to pediatric cancer.
Well, I'll make sure that I send a teaser of this to you that you can share with
That would be great.
your
Yes.
coworkers
Yes.
and to spearhead that going
Awesome.
goal. Yeah.
Great.
Well,
I
before we
appreciate
get out
you.
of here, will you give our listeners a word of encouragement?
Well, my word of encouragement would be to just keep going on, continue with the prayers, not only for your personal use, but for everyone that is still fighting this disease. Um, just do what you can and make people aware. My story is told everywhere. People will ask me, why are you here? Why did you do this? And because of Liam, I can tell my story
Mhm.
and just make people aware. And of course, um, through the power of prayer, please, you don't really have to ask people to pray because they just come forward and say, listen, we understand, we're going to pray, we're going to pray. So
Well, we'll leave it on that. Thank you so much for your
thank you.
time.
It was so nice to see you, and hopefully I will see you in December.
All right.